I'm here to talk to you today about one of the more popular skills in the game and a way that people aren't playing it. Now, we have 322 coming out 2 days from today, and a lot of people are looking for some builds. As far as new support gems go, there's one support in particular that's really getting hyped up on the self-cast spell side of things, and that's Spellblade support, which essentially does what Battle Mage does for Inquisitor at a 135 multiplier. So it takes up a support gem, but it's a 135 multi, and it stacks with Battle Mage, so it's like 70% more damage for those type of builds versus what they had before. Now, as far as self-cast spells go in Path of Exile, things have changed a lot over the years. And not all spells are created equal. They're not all the same. In fact, I think most people would agree there is one spell that is better than the rest. I'm about to trigger a bunch of people, but the numbers back it up. The greatest self-cast spell in the history of Path of Exile is a skill called Spark. And guess what? It kind of still is. Now, this skill has been around for a decade. It's seen its ups and downs. Like 7 leagues ago, it got buffed by 50% during the self-cast buff. And it really took off after that. It's kind of the go-to aura stacker skill. The reason it's just the apex skill is because not only is it good early game, but it scales in more directions than virtually any skill in the game, because not only does it scale like most skills do with percent damage, it scales with crit and crit multi, it scales with duration, it scales with number of projectiles, it scales with things like pierce, because the same spell with a duration can hit the same target multiple times if it either pierces them or has a different projectile. It scales with pen, that's stuff that hurts things like dots, that there's only so many directions they can scale even though they start off good. Spark scales with basically everything, and they're just all more multipliers. And it's also a type of scaling where it's not just damage, but it's quality of life, it's play style. You go from having something where you shoot 3 projectiles that slowly creep across the screen at level 2, to you have an endgame aura stacker that's shooting 150 projectiles per second that zip across the entire map in 2 seconds and blow up the entire map in like 6 casts. It is just the apex skill. Now, in 322, you could play it with Spellblade. I think that's a very strong option. I think the Energy Blade Spellblade combo on an ES stacking character playing Spellblade will be a very strong character. I did a little bit of POB theory crafting on that. But there's a different way that you could choose to play it. Now, the difference is Spellblade isn't out yet, and it comes out in 322. The different way I think you can play it actually came out last league in 321, and nobody did it. Nobody played this. Okay, I take that back. I checked on Pee-wee Ninja after I decided to make this video, and there's like one level 90 character who's using Spark with this, but they're not using like all the stats and everything. They're not doing this, but out of 15,000 Pee-wee Ninja characters, there's one that had both the skill Spark and a proj Quiver, but we'll get to this. So, throughout my plays in Crucible League, I came across the new 321 bow widowhail. Widowhail was added this league, and what it says is essentially it's 3.5 times stats on your quiver. I went ahead and got a very nice one. So I had my Crucible tree, I chanced it, got my Shaper and Crusader influence and all that. Made a pretty powerful character out of it. And I kind of found out that this scales things more than you can possibly get with any other combo. You can get 9 stats on a quiver with triple implicit. Technically 10 if you have a corrupt Gilded Fossil 1, which might be possible next league with Hinocor's Lock. But I took this really far. If you're not familiar with my Manaforged Arrow video, let me just show you the monstrosity I made with this combo and what we're about to tap into for power. So, if you're not familiar with the very extreme end of Path of Exile, the The hardest thing in the game is Deep Delve. And specifically, the hardest thing in the game is a Deep Delve Beyond encounter, which just before this, I beat one at 5300 with not too much trouble using my exact Crucible character. This is in Standard League, however, this is my exact Crucible character. I did not put on my standard gear. The reason I'm standing here right now with the Big Dick Energy Shield is just in case someone says this is standard gear, because I want to make it very, very clear. This is not standard gear. This is standard gear. Let's just get that out of the way, okay? This is my exact Crucible character that's in the last snapshot on Pee-wee Ninja from last league. What I'm about to show you is 3 to 5 billion DPS on a 10 mod 5300 zone on a boss. You don't blink or you'll miss it. You're going to see the boss appear, and then he's going to disappear, and if your frame rate's too low, you might miss him. But it's a 0.4 second kill, which is 2.5 billion DPS. But when you factor in that he's got plus 40 res on the mods, so he's actually 90 lightning res, when you factor in the res, it comes out to like 4.4 or something. So this isn't like POB warrior DPS. I didn't pre-Battle Mage's Cry, or it would have been like 70% higher than this. This is a known HP monster, which is the max amount of HP in the game. Deleted, Thanos snapped from existence in 0.4 seconds. I know I'm kind of memeing, but I actually mean don't blink. So, I was kind of surprised myself by that, because I thought it would be like a 1 second kill. And if you look back and see the reaction there, I was sitting there anticipating him appearing and being attackable, and then I saw the loot on the ground, and I registered that he had become attackable after I saw the loot. It went out of order in my brain. That's why I had the schoolgirl reaction there. Okay, so it's pretty powerful if you want to scale things with a 9-stack Quiver and widowhail. So we were talking about Spark, weren't we? How does this apply to Spark? Well, I'll get to that. So Quivers can have a lot of stats, especially with Synth or Corruptions or whatnot, but most of them apply to bows. So how does this come into play for a Spark build? Well, in all its might and power, Spark was nerfed this league. They took something that was the very heart and soul of the skill, and they nerfed its projectile speed by 25%. Not 25% reduced, that wouldn't be as bad, 25% less. They nerfed the base projectile speed by 25%. So before, it was moving with 33% more speed than it does now. That's kind of a big nerf. I know people play it off like that's not a big nerf. That's a massive nerf. And it's still possibly the best self-cast spell in the game. That's how good it was before. But the reason that the proj speed nerf is a big deal is because it hits two areas. It hits the clear speed side, because how fast you can clear a map kind of depends on how fast you can fire off all of your projectiles and fill up a canyon map or a strand map or a beach map or some Crimson Temple or Defiled Cathedral. The more proj speed you have, the more clear speed you have. Of all the things in this game that can 10 times your damage, most of them are only going to make you map like 20% faster, because you just kind of kill things in one hit anyways, past a certain amount of gear. Proj speed is actual like 1-to-1 clear speed. That's why it's so disgusting for your overall income and just everything. But it's also damage. That's something that people don't quite realize. Because the same cast of Spark can hit a monster multiple times, what happens is it passes through, and then it bounces off objects until it gets back to what you pierced the first time, hits it again. There's a rearm period of 0.66 seconds, 20 game ticks. And after that 0.66 seconds, it can hit again, and again, and again. And if you get a lot of duration and proj speed, the same Spark can hit one monster like 7+ times. I'll show a video just to kind of demonstrate this real quick. It's short. It's very short, but this is an old delve video of it. This is pure pad because it's supposed to be depth 10,000 6-player health, but this is just to trick people who don't know about the HP cap, because this is the exact same HP as a solo character's 1K boss has, which is the HP cap. And these are probably like 3 aura bots boosting his stats. So this is a highly manufactured title, but it's going to show off the example that proj speed and duration equals damage, because he's in All's room and he phased him to 85 pretty much instantly, but you can see all the bouncing around. Within the same cast, he's probably hitting this all like 7 times per cast. It's kind of like shotgunning. Watch the HP move with the entire room full of projectiles. So, projectile speed in most boss fights in the game, almost every single one. Everyone has some form of closed arena. Maven does. Even Exarch's arena is pretty big, but you can still get a lot of bounces with enough proj speed and multi-hit him a lot. And then you have more close ones like Shaper that has small arenas and all, where you can easily get like 7 hits. But it just comes down to duration and proj speed. And then proj speed once again is directly clear speed. So what happens when I take this bow, hang on, it's going to make me put this bow on, and I put it on an actual Spark character? Well, I know you're thinking, oh, aren't you the mana guy? I've played my share of Spark in the day. I've played my version of Spark Aura Stacker that was also like 20k ES stacking int to do deep delve with. Meet Charles Sparkley. I don't remember what league this was. It was the league after Scourge. Whatever the league after Scourge. Ritual? No, it wasn't. Anyways. This is Charles Sparkley. So, notably, the character's kind of bricked because this character is put together before a lot of the aura reservation nerfs, so I can't even put all my auras on. Back in the glory days, I had like 14 auras. I can only turn like 12 of them on now, so don't pay attention to that. We're about to show the mechanics of this, okay? So, let me grab this widowhail. Now, this is a character that kind of tried to get proj speed. I'm using a necklace that has 25 proj speed on it. I'm using haste, alt quality, with 4% increased proj speed that scales with aura effect. So I'm getting like 12 proj speed from this. I have a 2120 spark with a +4 shabs. It's level 26 because I have +1 in my amulet. So this has 48 proj speed baseline. So I'm not doing this comparison to show you a video, like show you a clip of the slowest proj speed spark ever, just to show some like night and day comparison. This is a character that actually tried to get high proj speed. Where's my actual spark here? Okay. Proj speed modifier +85. Now, you can get higher than this. There's characters walking around with like +150. They use like Ashes of the Stars, and then the alt quality Blood and Sand, and that's like +60. You can reasonably get to, granted you lose the 25 I have on Amulet, but there's other ways. You can reasonably get to like 130 or 150 on a really juiced aura stacker. But they still nerfed the proj speed, so this is going to look a little bit sad compared to that all you saw in that video right there. This is not the fastest sparks on Earth, okay? I have a decent number of projectiles. I'm firing 12. But these guys aren't moving too fast. You can watch them. I can put my cursor on one and I can follow where it goes. This is 185 proj speed on Spark, which is, once again, is still pretty high. What would happen if I ditched my weapons and I put on a quiver? Now, don't pay attention to the fact that all my auras got turned off in Prism Guardian. This is a demonstration of the mechanic. So now what is my proj? Oh! Plus 344. 444 projectile speed. How does this look? That is fast. This is very fast. This is like the old original Sin no-hit runs in Sanctum before the nerf. 444 proj speed, even with the 25% nerf, is probably still the fastest version of Spark ever in the game. So imagine this on a properly put together character that isn't bricked in standard with all its auras off. Now, Spark, if you haven't played this way, proj speed is the thing that makes it feel good. If you have no proj speed, it feels bad. It's directly damage. If you have sources of ES gain on hit, it's directly recovery. And then it's clear speed in the purest form. So you might think, well, okay, that's cool and all, but you just took your weapon and shield off. That sucks. Kind of, but not if you build around it. So what are some of the stats you can get on Quiver? I bought this Quiver before this video, and I used 7 essences on it. 7 essence. Now, the widowhail is a perfect roll, and I have a crucible tree, but you can buy a widowhail for 10 chaos. Even if you're being picky and trying to get like a 230 plus roll, you can buy them right now. I'm looking at one for 20 chaos for a 234. Okay? This was 7 essence into a Quiver. Now, why does the essence matter? Remember, every stat on here is taken times 3.5. 3.5. So it's not actually 74 proj speed. No, not at all. It's 74 times 3.5. It's 259 proj speed. Okay? What about the multi? Well, essence can roll up to 41 multi. Now, notably on Quivers, multi, the modifier is multiplier with bows, so it does not work on Spark. But with essence, it's global crit multi. It works on Spark. Now, if you have 41 times 3.5, that's 143 multi. That's equivalent to the multi support gem, just from that one mod. You can also get synth bases that have 30 multi. So synth plus essence could be... Oops. Synth plus essence can be 250 multi. You can get life up to 100, so that's 350 life. You can get chaos res. This would cap you from negative 60. If you hit 35 chaos res with this, okay, it would get you to positive 62 from negative 60. Not every mod on Quiver can scale Spark, but you can craft a Quiver with 6 mods that are all positive to Spark. You can get Aisling suffixes for strength and int. You can get, I don't think crit chance is worth it, but you can get like Aisling 35 strength int, which with 3.5 times multis 122. You can craft like hybrid armor evasion, and that 285 becomes 1,000. 1,000 flat evasion and armor. So 2/3 of a jade and granite flask all the time for a crafted prefix. So if you actually focus on crafting a Quiver where all 6 of the mods do something positive for Spark or your defenses, and then you have an implicit, or with a synth Quiver up to 3 implicits, or if you're really going crazy, a gilded fossil synth implicit that you Hinacor's lock and then corrupt into a 4 implicit item, and get something like spell suppression, which gets modified by the bow, and now you have 42 spell suppression. You can do nutty things. It gives you a pretty unique scaling opportunity. So I just want to show kind of an example POB of what this looks like. Now, I'll say, this I put together in like 4 minutes, okay? This is not the most efficient POB you can put together. I put this together specifically just to make a point. So I just started pathing, taking nodes, whatever, and I made some items. I think the total price of this right here is like 5 divines, and I think like 1 or 2 of that is just having a 6 link. No, it's not, because I'm using an astral plate. I put on... So you can buy the Celestial Justicar cards for a 6 link astral plate, and it's like 40 chaos, even like not too far into the league. So I have a 6 link astral plate. I'm using the Boots Off Shaper, which are like 1 chaos. I'm using the Crown Off Cyrus, which is a pretty common unique. The 21 perfect roll, or even call it a 20, whatever, those go for a little more, like 50 chaos. I'm just using some 4 stat items. I have 4 stat gloves with just some crafted res. Nothing I have on is that crazy. I'm using a Cyclopean coil, I made some generic 3-stat jewels. It's 3 good stats, I'll admit, but I didn't feel it'd be fair to do 4-stat jewels, so I just took a bunch of sockets and duplicated a 4-stat jewel, or a 3-stat jewel, just to fill out my stats really fast to make this example tree. So like I said, nothing here is like really expensive. I have a few items that are Eldritch implicited, but notably I only did Grand, which is like 4 chaos, on the good mods, and then on the bad mods, I did the lesser, which are like half a chaos. So like these gloves have the un-nerf mod, tier 1, and I think that's tier 3 for the exposure. So I probably have like 90 chaos worth of on average to hit some of these just Eldritch implicits. I'm using it at Ziri's Promise. I'm not using anything like, I'm not using a Bottled Faith. I really think I'm being genuine and not padding here. I put this together in 4 minutes with the most like bullshit gear possible, and like a bunch of gear that doesn't even have full stats, okay? Like just 4-stat gear. Now, I said there's no mirror items in this. I said these are all really basic items. There's 2 exceptions to that. There's 2 very major exceptions to that. Because this item I have in my weapon slot is a mirror weapon. It's +2 gems, perfect T1 multi, 38, perfect T1 cast speed, 32, runic, which is like a 1 in 10,000 hit on prefixes. You basically have to fracture to hit it, and then you can't fracture the +1 all skills. You have to pick one or the other and hit the other naturally. And then the suffix perfect 30 multi. And I'm wearing 2 of these for maximum damage. And with these on, I'm at 8.3 million DPS with a 6 link. And I'm making the assumption that the spark is hitting 2 times on the target. Now, why would I give you this example of really basic cheap gear and then 2 mirror weapons? Doesn't that kind of defeat the point? Well, remember when I said I crafted this with 7 essence? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put on that quiver. And I decided, I can't use my widowhail. So I just put on one that I found on the trade site for 20 chaos before stream. And there's no crucible tree on it. It's just like a 230 roll on what's normally a 10 chaos item. And it was 20 chaos because of the slightly higher roll. And then I put on basically the quiver I just rolled for 7 essences. Except I crafted the armor evasion mod and just gave it like a 70th percentile roll because it's a 4 chaos craft, I think. Now what happens? Well, remember our spark video and the fact that when your proj speed goes up to 444, you start to hit more times. The same monster does not get hit 2 times if you go from 150 proj speed to 450. So if we're tripling the proj speed here, I'm going to go ahead and be conservative and assume now that you're getting hit 5 times. And remember, I'm using Voidwalker, which you don't need to hit the target 5 times because different projectiles can hit the same monster after the duration's up. But with Pierce, the same exact projectile can even hit the same monster multiple times with the duration. You just need to have enough proj speed to get that engagement. What happened to my DPS? Oh. 8.6 million. I'm using all 2020 gems, nothing's corrupt. I'm using regular spell echo because awakened spell echo costs a lot. It's like 5 divines. So I thought that wouldn't be fair. I'll just use regular spell echo 2020. The only awakened gem I'm using is added lightning damage, which is my 6th best gem. It's only 33% damage. It's literally my worst gem. And these are usually only like 30 chaos, like a day or 2 into the league, because it's one that drops off like the regular bosses and 10 ways and conquerors. So the full gem setup plus 6 link is probably like 2 divines. And the full gear is probably like 2. and we went from 8.3 million DPS to 8.6 million DPS. But I think it's worth mentioning. You can be like, well, you're doctoring the numbers because you're adding hit. That's the whole point of the proj speed. That's how the mechanic works. But I tried to make this as lopsided and fair as possible because, once again, remember, I'm not making a one-to-one comparison. I'm comparing it to a dual-wield mirror scepter. Notably, this does not screw up auras because I'm not swapping off a Prism Guardian that has auras in it. I'm going dual-wield scepters, which is just full damage with no aura compatibility. This is a one-to-one comparison. All the auras that could be possibly in these scepters are instead just in the quiver, or in the bow 6-link. Technically it's better because it's a 6-link, so I can empower like 5 auras if I wanted to. What did I... Oh, I kept it at 5 projectiles. So, this isn't like a full build guide. This is a demonstration of a mechanic on how to get some absolutely nutty proj speed. And if you've ever played Spark with this proj speed, it's one of those things where you just almost can't go back. It just feels bad after this. Now, I'm someone who, if you saw that clip earlier on the Deep Delve, I like to take things to the extreme. So if I were to play this, I'm going to try to convince my buddy Problem to play this to the kind of hardcore end and see how high he can push it in 322. But I don't like to, I'm not going to be using this gear, okay? If I played this character, I would not be using this gear. Just to humor you, I'm just going to make an item. I'm going to look at a POB that's what would happen if I had more on par with the gear I typically run. So this is largely made from the same items I use in Crucible League on my Crucible character. So some of these items are just directly pulled from that character. They're very high-end items, obviously, but like this is what I produce during a typical league when I play one character. So this is the high end, but you'll notice we have a 250 million DPS, which is pretty good. 27k ES with a 91k evasion. I mean, this right here, what you're looking at, would be 6k delve viable pretty easily. This is a lot of gear, but no one goes to 6k who doesn't make this kind of money along the way. So this is just kind of a demonstration that if you have a stupid quiver like this, and I'll explain the stats on this quiver too. I made this really fast to assume that you have synthesis, proj speed, and multi. So that's why it's 71 multi, because it's 30 from the synth mod and 41 from the essence. And then I just kept it as a feathered quiver for the synthesis proj speed. And technically I padded one of the two because I would only have either int or strength, not both. But that doesn't affect the DPS, only the ES. But this is an extreme quiver. But like this is kind of tweaked to base it off of what a 6 mod triple synth that's then taken stats times 3.5 could look like on the highest end. And you could actually technically do better than that, because if you did the Hinacor's Lock corruption thing, you could get a 4th implicit. But this is a very, like, I don't want to say exaggerated, because I could totally beat this in the real league. I always do when I make these kind of POBs. The real character still ends up beating the preseason, like, mirror POB. But I just wanted to prove a concept that at the highest end, this might be the best way to play Spark. I still have my synth tree too. If it didn't have synth on it, I'd be like 22 or 23k ES. And I don't think it would actually change my DPS at all, because I have pure defense on it. And things only work with bows too. Like, I have Master Fletcher, which gives bows +1 proj, which isn't doing anything for Spark. But so yeah, there's the other thing to note here too is there's no tattoos. So we don't know what kind of powers yet you'll get from tattoos. But yes, there's power taken away from the loss of Crucible, but like every new league, there will be power added back in through things like tattoos. We just don't have that information yet. But yeah, like I said, not a full build guide, but I just wanted to show off a goofy concept that Quiver Spark is probably the fastest version of Spark available, and is probably also the overall biggest number version of Spark available. Both move speed, clear speed, damage, and defense. It can simultaneously win every category versus the standard Spark playing Quiver Spark. It's a somewhat counterintuitive thing, but I would like to see this pushed this league. If the right synth quiver comes up, and I'm feeling like it, I might reroll this, but we'll see. That'll wrap it up. Hopefully you guys go do some wacky, goofy Quiver Spark. Or play some mana builds. You can delete Ahwaddles too. See you later.